Hey, comic book collectors, do you want to protect what you collect? Do you hate when your comic books slide around in your short box, or you need to turn them sideways just so they don't bend or fall over? Well, look no further than Sidekick Supplies. Their product fits firmly inside your comic box, so you don't need to worry. And not only is their product made in the USA, but also ships free directly to your doorstep. Check out our sponsor, Sidekick Supplies, at sidekicksupplies.com and use the code ComicCom15 for 15% off your purchase. Believe me, you'll be ordering more than one.
Welcome to the one and only Comic-Con Podcast, your podcast for comic book news, reviews, and comic community drama, with your hosts, Nemesis Prime and Milton the Manimal. Are you listening?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Comic-Con Podcast, Season 4, Episode 21. Recording this on May the 20th. Very early recording this week because myself, Nemesis Prime, is going out of town for a change. So I figured, you know what? Let's try to get this thing in. And we're going to do it. So it's going to be an all-review show because, obviously, we're recording this on Monday. No books yet. We don't want to do articles. We've been talking about all these shows and stuff that have been ending, and we're just going to do nothing but cartoons. And look who decided to show back up.
Yes.
You get the hands off the goddamn PlayStation controller. I can see it there, bro.
I'm talking and I'm looking at my achievements right now, so don't worry about it. Double duties here. You're going out of town, but you're coming to my town.
I can't believe you're actually on your PlayStation looking at achievements right now.
I'm looking to see how many more I have for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, dude. So I'm like at 68%. I'm 47 out of 61. Like, I'm just kind of looking to see what I got to do. Like, this one's pissing me off right here because I'm pretty sure I should have that one. So I'm going to go back and check that one. But yeah, dude. So you're coming to DC, and we're going to talk a little comics today. We do have one comic we're going to talk about, but before we, I guess, get into all that, you kind of did a little community thing this past weekend, right?
Yeah, man. Super community thing. Up to Newington, Connecticut, 3 Men in a Basement comic swap. Those guys put on.
Went to 3 men's basements. Gross, dude.
Oh, it was at the Angry Hair.
Yeah, the Angry Hair. My bad.
Yeah, it was at the Angry Hair. It was really cool, man. There was a ton of people there. Like, just whether you're set up and selling, whether you're just coming in to just buy books or swap books or, you know, whatever, trade things. It was a lot of fun. There was tons of people, like I said, in the community. I was there all day Friday setting up with those guys, all day Saturday. The after party on Saturday was pretty crazy. You know,
sounded like some good singing going on.
Yeah. Tons of good singing going on, man.
I was turning the volume off of my Instagram, just watching you guys. I didn't want to listen.
Oh my God. Yeah. There was, the pipes were blaring for some people. You know, a lot of people kind of, and it got worse and better throughout the night. You know, some people kind of got into it finally. Some people were just, woo.
Yeah.
So, okay. But it was a lot of fun. You know, overall, there was no drama. A lot of fun. You know, I picked up a ton of books, tons of stuff for myself, tons of stuff for some whatnot stuff. But just overall, it's just an awesome time, you know, and it's
nice.
You know, it sucked out a lot and I couldn't believe how many people actually came to the after party who really weren't staying around. Like, a couple people had to drive at least a few hours back home, like to other states, but they still hung out with us like pretty late, which is wild. You know, and that's just kind of like, huh?
Did you close the bar down?
No, we definitely did not close the bar down.
Okay.
I mean, we were exhausted by so we had like a set room from like 8 to 11, like a private room. That's when the DJ was, the karaoke guy was there from 8 to 11. But yeah, I couldn't wait to hit the bed, man. Like, I was up at 6:30. I was at the show by like 8, and then just all day walking around, talking with people, whatever the case may be. So it was just kind of like a little precursor to Terrificon. So it's just gonna be wild, you know. 4 days of fun. So
yeah, it looked fun. Well, sorry I couldn't be there.
Yeah, you know, it's all right. It happens. There's bigger and better things, right?
Even on the East Coast, man, it's still fucking far away from me.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Baltimore, Terrificon. There's some.
Oh yeah, those are. Baltimore's easy for me. Terrificon's still far, but I'm gonna make the journey.
Yeah. So fly there, get that car, and you'll be good to go. So
yeah.
All right, let's get into some reviews of some stuff. We do have one comic to talk about. It is a new creator owned comic. We had an advanced copy of it. Did just come out last week. Over at Clover Press, Armored #1, written by Michael Schwartz. So launch of a new spooky series. Orphan teen Andy, his parents disappeared mysteriously. Now he's just been adopted by a quaint family living in the countryside. But what could go wrong? Screenwriter Michael Schwartz of Zombie Town and No Malone makes his comics debut alongside rising artist Emil Hernandez, whose full painted pages using colorfully brilliant in both modeling and storytelling, according to the industry titan Frank Quigley.
Mhm.
Awesome. So we have some talks about it. You know, we actually got it about 2 weeks ago, but you can actually go pick it up at your local comic shop, and they actually had a pretty badass Jay Lee cover too.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I saw the Jai Lee cover and I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So let's kind of get into this. I know you were pretty excited to talk about this, so why don't you deep dive
Yeah.
us into this?
You know, I enjoyed this quite a bit. I mean, I'm a sucker for anything kind of medieval, right? And
Mhm.
especially like well, let me get into the story and I'll give you an idea of like why it kind of like resonated with me. But so the story kind of starts off, it's obviously modern times. The story starts off with three kids in taking place somewhere in England, in countryside there, and they explore this castle and there's like it's kind of like a dare. These three kids go inside of it, and one kid ends up kind of being pushed off this like tower by like some monster ghost guy and dies. Um, cut to our protagonist, Andy, who is an orphan and he gets adopted. Coincidentally enough, he gets adopted by this family that just lost their son from falling off the parapets of this castle. So Andy's looking for there's some mystery, like Justin said, about his family and where they disappeared to. And obviously he's now in with the family who lost their kid, and he's seeing like this glowing light from the castle from like a little bit of distance. So he goes to check it out. And he ends up finding like falling in a hole and finding a grave. And what does any smart kid do? Well, let's just open this grave up. There's like a dead knight in there. And he pulls out like this little like shield type thing, and it becomes a suit of armor, and a ghost kind of links up with him and is like guiding him.
Mm.
So it's really cool. He presses the button on the thing and like he gets this all suit of armor and like a sword, and then this ghost, ghost Yoda is there like guiding him and following him around.
Yeah.
And of course talking like he's from the Middle Ages, and they don't get each other, and he's like a 13-year-old kid, and he's like telling the ghost to leave him alone. And it's just, there's a pretty good dynamic. And it's like, I know I bitch a lot about, like in comics, people writing these snarky teenagers, right? Or these snarky young kids, and everyone's so witty and everyone's so quippy. And it's like the Marvel thing, right? With like everyone's like that. But Schwartz nailed it. Like I felt like this is what a 13-year-old kid would actually be like, especially like an orphan 13-year-old kid. And it
Mhm.
doesn't come off like obnoxious or annoying. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Like I said, it really resonated with me because, I was a kid obsessed with like the Middle Ages and knights and King Arthur and all that. And like the idea of finding a suit of armor, and becoming this like powerful knight, of course, is like the fantasy of all that. So I thought it was fun. I thought it was really cool. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's got a la like, I don't know. This is going to be a reference that maybe not everyone gets. There's an author, Terry Brooks, who writes. Everyone might know him from the series Shannara, Sword of Shannara, and the Shannara series. But he also has another series called Landover, and the first book is Magic Kingdom of Landover Sold. And so it's like this idea that this guy buys this kingdom, and he same kind of thing. He gets like this medallion that when he uses, he becomes like this paladin or whatever. And it's kind of same, not the same, but it definitely gave me like vibes like that.
Mhm.
But man, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I went on the Kickstarter and checked it out. Looks like issue 2 is coming up, right? Is that what I saw? If not already out, I think. But
No, because this one just came out, so it would
oh,
just
it
been
did just come out. Okay,
yeah, this just came out
I think I saw on
last week.
Kickstarter they're close or moving towards issue number 2. Um, but yeah, check
Nice.
it out, man. I mean, if like Justin said, if it's in your shop, pick it up. There's also, like we said, a really awesome Jai Lee variant foil cover. I enjoyed it, man. I thought it was fun, and I'm going to continue to read it as long as it keeps coming out. Like I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it was definitely it's interesting because, like you said, like you have this orphan kid who's very quiet in the beginning, and he
Yeah.
like he doesn't talk to these or his new parents or family, and doesn't he doesn't talk anything at school.
Mhm.
But then obviously, like once he gets the pendant, and he's like a completely different person a little bit.
Yeah.
He opens up a little bit more. But yeah, the back and forth of having this like ghostly Yoda, like you said, I thought that was perfect.
Yeah.
That's I guess the best way to look at it. And then it kind of ends with something that he's going to battle, right?
Right.
And that's kind of where it ends on that first issue. But yeah, I agree. I think it could be a good story, and especially, and it has that, it has that goosebumps feel.
It
Right?
does have
The
goosebumps feel.
The
Yeah.
R.L. Stein
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Because like the ghost guy's like missing his nose. Like he's not like he doesn't like look like a normal dude. Like, he's like bones is showing and
Yeah.
giveth back the armor. Shit he says, dude. And like I don't know. It's
And plus, he's just like half his body too. He's like floating.
Yeah.
It's like way different. That at least if he was a full ghost, but like a little bit more. But it's like literally you could actually see like his
Right.
vertebrae, and then he's got
Right.
like the
His
one
face
arm
all
is like
jacked up and
it's
like
it's pretty bad. So, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit more of a background on the night as well at some point. So, but yeah. So we
I
appreciate
enjoyed it,
Michael
man.
Schwartz for providing us a copy to Armored. Again, you can order it directly through Clover Press, or you can just ask your local shops to order it, and they should have it within 2 weeks. So
Yeah, check it out, people. I mean, give it a shot. We all buy, myself included, we all buy a lot of garbage, right? And we continuously buy garbage because whatever, we're invested in said garbage. But, these books that are coming out, like, give them a shot because it's worth it and it costs you almost next to nothing. And if we're saying it's good, it's good. So, like I said, last thing I got to say, a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I talked about this last week. We are going to be nothing but reviews for the next, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes. So let's kind of get right into it. First thing up, just ended about 3 weeks ago now. Bad Batch season 3 series finale. 15 episodes. Omega, Clone Force 99. What was your overall thoughts on this season, man? Like, what did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it ugly?
Oh, no, I liked it. I definitely liked it. I don't know if I liked it as much as like the other seasons of Bad Batch. I definitely enjoyed it quite a bit, but I don't know, man. I guess if I'm thinking about it now, like there's just so many just like Clone Wars, right? There's like a ton of filler episodes. I like the way like I really enjoyed. Obviously, we had the loss of Tech, right? So that was like a big gap, and I loved the redemption arc and storyline of Crosshairs coming back. So I really enjoyed the dynamic Crosshair eventually like developed with Omega. But without getting like too much into the weeds, because I'm sure you got a lot more to say than I do. I think the things that bugged me the most about it was like we know what's going on, right? Like we know the goal, the midichlorians and the cloning, and we know we're leaning towards like Palpatine, sequel trilogy, all that shit. But I think what bugs me is they don't ever actually come out and say it, right? They never say like, yeah, we're cloning bodies for Emperor Palpatine. So like it's for kids and they may not get that. Obviously we're 40-year-old dudes watching it and we understand, but it kind of bugged me that I felt like they just danced around it for so long. And I thought eventually at the end of the season, it was going to be like a straight up like, hey, you might even see like Xenagol, right? Xenagol or
Exegol.
Exegol. Yeah. Then you might even see Exegol, or like they might mention like, hey, we're shipping things to Exegol or something like that. Or honestly, I thought at the one point when they go down, I mean, you finally get through like the vault, right? I thought maybe you would even see like a Snoke like clone or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of bugged me. And then I'll talk about the end when after you're done, when we kind of talk about the end.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about it. I did like the little Easter eggs they threw in there.
Yeah.
Like because they kind of talk about, they're like, oh well, this is done. Let's focus everything on Project Stardust. and we all know Project Stardust
Yeah, that
from
was cool.
Rogue One, which is cool. I don't know, like this season, I was kind of wanting it to end.
Yeah,
Like
earlier.
yeah, like
Yeah.
to me, like memorable episodes. Like season 2 is great, right? Like season 2 has so many great episodes with Crosshairs. Like his redemption arc, realistically, is in that second. It's almost like the original trilogy, like A New Hope. That season 1 is great because it's like a lot of action, and then season 2 is kind of like the climax because you get that real redemption with Crosshairs of him like really figuring out who he is,
Mhm.
and then this one coming back to the team, right? Memorable episodes, like obviously the Harbinger episode, I think that's what it's called, with Asajj. Like that is by far to me like the
Oh,
coolest
yeah.
episode. Like
That was a cool one.
seeing her again. The other episode that was really good was the one with like Commander Rex and meeting up with like Wolf.
Oh, where they do, like, the prison break thing? Was that
Yeah,
what yeah,
yeah.
right, yeah,
Like that was cool because it's like they still are all about like getting out all the clones. Like they're doing the wrong thing. Like because that was like that's like Rex's thing. He's still about we followed orders and look what it led to. And now at this point, the clones are kind of like they're hated by the Empire, right?
Mhm.
They've been switching over a lot of things to the stormtroopers. So I wish they, and then another thing that I really wish they would have maybe expanded on, and that's why they didn't, because again, there's a lot of filler episodes, is all those like bounty hunter clones, right? By the end when there's like 5 of them and they're fighting, they're almost like
Oh,
what's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
almost like watching Civil War, right? With like how there's Bucky is like the Winter Soldier, but then they're
Mhm.
like, oh, they created like 4 other Winter Soldiers
Right,
from
and it
Hydra.
seemed like they had, like, some extra obviously, they were stronger and more skilled, but I mean, it honestly that bugged me too because I was like, you just created these characters and then you didn't really like they were kind of a cool idea, but you didn't really go into it or develop them
Mhm.
too much. Yeah, I don't know. I hated that. Actually, now that I think about it, I didn't like it, dude. Like there were so many other opportunities for like better villains or than to just like do these. Like, oh, these are souped up bad clone guys. Like it's like
Mhm.
okay, so it's basically like the bad guy version of the clone. Oh, the Bad Batch is really kind of like what it is, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then you had to have the double escape from the planet. Like Omega leaves and then comes back. And then
Right?
they
Yeah.
try to she's trying to leave again. It's just like, ugh, God. Like we get it. It's a double heist, full season for the most part. So
Yeah.
but yeah, overall I thought the second season is my favorite. And then I would go first season and then this one. It obviously, it does leave it open for Omega. There is that time jump, which Filoni's great at, always like forwarding the story at some point. So Omega at some point joins the rebels. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, the ending was cool. I liked that, I like that the clones get like this kind of happy ending, right? They go back to that planet where they, are friends with everyone
mhm,
and it does seem like they got a happy ending, right? You don't want it like, man, they fought enough and they're all getting old, and that was cool. I really enjoyed that. Um, but it does make you wonder, right? Like, will we see Omega? I mean, obviously, this was like, um, she doesn't show up in the original trilogy, of course, so
mhm.
will we see her in the Mandalorian type stuff? I mean, at that point, what? Let's see, she's roughly the same age as Boba, right? She's probably roughly the same age as Boba.
So she's like a few years younger than Luke. I think I had this
A few
conversation with
years younger
somebody.
than Luke. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Boba was when the clones were created, Boba was just like baby Boba. He was allowed to like grow.
No,
Like they
he's
started as
definitely
a baby.
older. No, Bubba's older.
He started like 5 or 6, right? And then they let him grow as like a 5 or 6 year old.
Yeah, because it's like in the Clone Wars, he's like got to be like a young teen. And then
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, because you really don't know when. I mean, I don't know the full
Right.
timeline of when
So why are we
Boba's
thinking
born.
a little? You said a little older than Luke or a little younger?
He's definitely younger. She's definitely younger than Luke by a
Okay.
little bit.
So Luke's
Because she
born
would have been
November
created because she
5th.
would have been created
Yeah.
before Revenge of the Sith.
Just a little.
Order 66. She was definitely created. So she was
She's a
definitely
little older than Luke. Yeah. Okay.
older than Luke. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That I guess, yeah, that's the only way they would show her up. But I didn't really think about it as like a happy ending. I didn't think about it that
Mm.
way. I
Oh,
kind of
really?
looked at it
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a happy ending, yes.
Yeah.
I just felt that at the end of season 2, like you got that feel like for the clones because you
Mhm.
lost Tech. I
Yeah.
felt like you should have lost another one to really bring in the embrace of like the emotional side.
Damn,
But they
dude,
didn't
they
do.
don't need to all die. God.
I'm not saying all of them, but I mean like
Filler.
at least some of them, like at least
Who?
another
The
one.
big idiot wrecker? Like, no. Okay. I mean, Crosshair.
He's trying. I mean, Crosshair literally says, I'm going to sacrifice myself, type of thing, and they're like,
Yeah, but it
no,
wouldn't.
don't do it. Like,
I feel like it wouldn't have meant as much if he died.
I feel like it would have meant more because it is the sacrifice to have your brothers, survive
Well,
and
he
the other
sacrificed a
clones.
hand.
Yeah, well,
He ain't shooting no rifles any longer. Uh, but no, I mean, yeah, I think I'm with you with like your ranking, and I kind of did get to a point as well where I was a little tired of the
yeah.
season. I was like, okay, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, you're just like watching the episodes to like
To
you're
get
like,
to
all
the
right, well,
end.
it's gonna get to the point where what are we gonna what's gonna happen? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah. But again, overall, it was a good series. I'm happy they were again expanding more of this, throwing in the little tidbits of things that are people that we've seen in the different series and planets and things that are gonna foreshadowing. But
Mhm.
right, it's like it's tough to see like what's obviously Project Necromancer is nothing until many years in the future when episode 7, 8, and 9 come out. Well, at least like 9. So. But let's stick with some Star Wars stuff. This came out on May the 4th. The Tales of the Empire 6 episodes all at once dropped, about 15 minutes apiece. Um, let's kind of break it up into the first half and the second half. So we
Yeah.
got Morgan Elsbeth as the first half, and then you got Barris Offee as your second half storyline. I know a lot of people were like, kind of like, hey, well, why are they doing, Morgan Elsbeth? And I guess Dave's like, well, we got to expand her backstory because she's in Mandalorian and then she was in Ahsoka. And
Mhm.
people are like, who is she? What's she all about?
And she's a big, I mean, main one, arguably the main villain in Ahsoka. I mean, obviously Thrawn's a
Mm,
big bad in the background, but it was her that was the driving force the whole
yeah.
season.
Yeah. So, it starts with her as a young Morgan Elsbeth on Dathomir, which is awesome. Like,
Uh,
I think the opening scene with the battle droids and Grievous, like, just badass. Like, he is just wrecking people, right?
Grievous always is cool looking, man.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, they just make
lightsabers.
him better and better.
Yeah.
Uh, And then it kind of it gets to a point where you're seeing this change in her, right?
Mhm.
You're really seeing the change to, what she's become, what you finally see her become in the Mandalorian show. Uh so I liked her arc a lot. I can't really complain too much about it because, she did what she set out to do. She wanted power and she's joined the Empire basically. It's her hate that fueled her to get into the next, stage of her life. Something that
Yeah.
she could have just ran from. So, what was your, feelings on the first 3 episodes?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I think I was excited about like getting a little bit more of her backstory. Um, I don't know. I didn't think it was very groundbreaking in terms of her backstory. Like it was a pretty like if you were to ask me, hey, what do you think her backstory is? And I probably could have said like, well, she was pissed about Dathomir, and then she just got more disillusioned, and then she ended up where she was. Like I mean, that was
Mhm.
kind of really like I just pretty much summarized those episodes. But um, I don't know. It was cool. I liked it. I wasn't blown away by it. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. And then, second half, you wanna start us off with the Barasafi? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, Barisofi, she's a tricky character in general, man. I mean, you kind of feel bad for her, right? Like in what we saw in Clone Wars, she's already in like a bad spot, and of course, she's in jail for betraying the Jedi. But good thing for her, Jedi are gone, right? So
Yeah.
the Empire is like, hey, we'll let you out, and we'll indoctrinate you into our death cult. So, they bring her to the Inquisitorius, which is always cool, man. Like I love the Inquisitor stuff, and I think even when we were talking about this season coming out. I think both of us were very excited to see more the Inquisitor stuff. And, of course, we've seen the fourth sister like in different aspects. Like we saw her in, I always forget if we saw her in the game, but we saw her in Obi-Wan.
Mhm.
We've seen her around. And so we got a little bit more on the fourth sister, which I think is really cool. And I liked the way Barris Offee's story went, right? Like, I'm glad they didn't keep her dark. Like, she did have a hand coming back to the light type thing. Because as much as I want to see, like, it is cool to see like these people break bad, right, and then become like a Sith.
Mhm.
I didn't really feel like even like leading up to this, I was like, I don't know, but Barris Offee, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if she's quite like. I mean, like Morgan Elsbeth for sure, right? But like, I don't know about Barris. I don't know if she had the turmoil in her life to really go like hardcore Sith. Um,
Yeah.
but so I like the way her story went. It was a little up in the air though at the end there. I mean, what's the deal? Is she alive? Is she dead? Will we see her again?
Mm.
And then what about the fourth sister? So I don't know. What'd you think?
Well, I'm glad you went first because I didn't like the whole second half. Well, I
No.
shouldn't say the
Okay.
whole second half.
I actually felt like you'd like it more because I know you're such a big Clone Wars fan. Like I
Yeah.
know you were excited for Barris Offee.
Yes. So yeah, definitely the whole thing, the whole Order 66, the Inquisitors. Yes. I think the whole fourth episode is great.
Mhm.
You're like, oh, this is awesome. It's gonna be, an empire driven storyline. Grand Inquisitor, you see some other Inquisitors, ones that I think Marek's in there from Ahsoka. You see the Inquisitor that Ahsoka fights in Tales of the Jedi. Yes, you see, Vader, like her new
Mhm.
master, and like you said, the Inquisitorious Fortress. Um, and then that fifth episode kind of shifts, like her devotion or her resolve is like it's goes back and forth. It's like, well, do I want to be bad? Then I'm seeing all these people die, and then like it's like, she's kind of fading back and forth between the light and the Sith. So I
Yeah.
was like, all right, what's gonna happen? And then by the sixth episode, it's just like she's kind of like a hermit. Mm, I, and I don't know how long has passed because she looks so old, right? From like
Yeah.
the fifth to
Yeah.
the sixth episode. So it's like, man, how far in the future is this? Because she almost looks like kind of like an Ahsoka age, like in Ahsoka, right? Like in the Mandalorian timeline. So the fourth sister, like, has she been around just randomly wandering around, or did Barris just like get old looking for whatever reason? It's like very odd.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then of course the you get stabbed by a lightsaber nowadays. It's like you could survive, right? Like
Well, I mean, I guess
that's
it cauterized the wound right away, man.
I yeah,
It
and
ain't
the
gonna bleed
frozen,
out.
they slap on a chunk of ice to your chest and your stomach and your back. I guess I don't know, but yeah, it's weird. I don't think it should have been called either. It should have been called something else, or Tales of the Empire should have had Morgan as the first part, and then I thought Thrawn would have been a better choice to set him up more as like I know how much we've seen him in Star Wars Rebels and his reemergence in Ahsoka, but I feel like it just was not Tales of the Empire. Like, mm, like I don't get it. Like for her, like you can't go good. Like, and I know that's the story of Star Wars. Like,
Right.
it's always got to end on a positive note. Like every movie for the most part, there's always that hope. Like that's what Star Wars is. It's all about hope. But it's like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Like it's called the Empire. It's called Tales of the Empire because it's the Empire. That's not Tales of the maybe Empire. So like I'm
You,
hoping maybe next year they do Tales of the Sith and it's
and it's
straight up
dark.
Sith.
Yeah.
Yeah, like straight up Darth.
It's so like thinking about it too, like the way it ends with the fourth sister, right? Like it basically implies like, hey, you don't have to be a Sith anymore, and like
Mhm.
leaves her Inquisitor lightsaber like behind. So now that's two Inquisitor like characters, because we also kind of saw that with the third sister in Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Towards the end, she's having a shift and she's
Mhm.
not really going that route. So yeah, like I don't know. I'm kind of starting to think these Inquisitors are a bit soft, like really like they don't really hold to their vows very well. I don't know if they're training them correctly. Yeah, I don't know, man. I want to see some more Show me some Inquisitors who just don't quit. I want the no quit Inquisitors, the ones who are just out here murking dudes left and right. Yeah, I'm with you on the Tales of the Empire thing. It definitely makes more sense. I wondered why it was like at first before seeing the episodes, I was like, Tales of the Empire, that's dumb. Like, why not Tales of the Sith? But based on the stories they told, obviously not Sith. So
Yeah, I think you could, however they do it, right? Like you can do a Darth Vader 3 episode thing, which would be awesome, like just straight Darth Vader stuff. And I know it's only 15 minutes, but we really haven't gotten too much Vader animated, other than the little bit that we've seen him in Rebels, right? He's in him when he fights Kanan and Ezra, and then when he fights Ahsoka, pretty much don't get him too much more. He's not really in Clone Wars. He's at the very, very end. So I think Tales of the Sith would be a nice, progression in this series, and have Darth Vader as one half, and then, I don't know what they would go with who else, but or just do all the Vader.
Who would have been like another cool character for like Tales of the Empire, kind of along the same route of like Morgan Elsbeth, if they did like a little background on Moff Gideon, like Moff Gideon's role coming up, right? Like where was he before we see him in like Mandalorian? That would have been another like good Empire, because it is a member of the Empire who's going to stay a part of the Empire. But even like Morgan Elsbeth, like, is she part of the Empire? Doesn't really seem like it. Like she's just out for power. She's not like a true like card carrying member of the Empire necessarily.
So overall, again, I hope the series continues again, and I just think next one should be called Tales of the Sith, and make it all Sith characters, or just straight up all Vader.
Tales. I got one. What about Tales of the Syndicate? And it's just crime syndicates.
Maybe Tales of the Bounty Hunters.
Oh God, no more bounty hunters, man. No more bounty hunters. So sick of the bounty hunters.
Or Tales of the Mandalorians, and then you throw in like Bo-Katan, and
we've seen all of them. No, we need to explore other avenues and other like aspects of the Star Wars universe. Like, I mean, if you do Tales of the Sith, give me some like older Sith, dude. Give me some like Darth Bane, Darth Plagueis. Like, give me some Sith like that. Like, I mean, what do I need to know more about the Emperor? No, unless you're going to show me the early times.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to have it it would be cool to do then 3 episodes of Vader and 3 episodes of like Kylo Ren, and do kind of like what they did in the 4-issue miniseries with Kylo Ren, like coming up as like a Padawan and getting trained and then transfer,
I'd agree with the Kylo. I feel like we've, based on everything else, we've had not enough, because you never have enough Vader, but Vader's explored in so many other mediums that like spending the time on him isn't needed. So.
All right. Well, out of Star Wars and keeping with the Marvel, keeping with the Disney Plus, let's end for the next probably at least 30 minutes talking about this X-Men 97. So, a lot of people, if you listened to last week's episode, I talked about how it was possibly a flop. Yeah. But and again, listen, that's not me. I'm not the one saying it was a flop. I'm the one who was just reading an article that I found that said based on numbers, and some people commented on it, and I appreciate the comments on the post. That they're definitely warranted, and some people say that casual viewers are going to watch the live action stuff. The people like you and Isaac, and people that are out there listening that are older, people that that watched it as the 90s are going to watch it now. People that are newer may not watch it because they may not understand it. So maybe they're going to go through X-Men the animated series, and then at some point they will get to X-Men 97, right?
So I had read a couple articles as well dealing with like the topic you were talking about, and I can't remember if you kind of like mentioned this specifically in the episode last week, but when you say it's a flop, like you said, you're not talking about like it sucked or anything like that. You're talking about like financially and monetarily. In the articles I read as well, we're saying that, and it's not necessarily X-Men 97 is a flop, like because of X-Men 97, anything X-Men 97 did. But what they're saying is the cost for X-Men 97, as opposed to the subscriptions that Disney is getting, is making it a flop. Like, and not a flop. And like you said, a flop is like you're making it. It's a weird word. Maybe it's not the right word, but I don't know what better word to use either. But subscriptions and to Disney Plus are down so much
Mhm.
that they're not warranting. Like, I mean, you're really doing the math on it, and it's like this is really not keeping up the cost of this. And you did mention this on the episode, like Echo was like one of the highest producers. So keep in mind that might also be. Remember, Echo was only 5 episodes. X-Men 97 was 10 episodes. So now you got however much it costs. I don't know the cost between like live action and animation,
Mhm.
but then you're doing divided by 5, divided by 10, how much per episode, plus, the math you're doing for the subscriptions. And that's what they're saying monetarily when they call it a flop.
Yeah.
So,
And it was interesting, like, not visual and we don't have it here, but if the pie chart showed all the percentages. And like I said last week, like Percy Jackson was number one by like doubled everybody, right?
yeah.
Like it was like 20 something. It was like low 20s. And I'm just like, I haven't even seen the series and I like Percy Jackson. So now I'm like, man, if a
I
lot of
saw it.
people
I
are,
liked it.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, I
Yeah,
gotta
it was
check it out.
good. Yeah.
So now I have, something new to watch because I mean, up until I guess next, a couple of weeks, we'll have the Acolyte. And, we really didn't get a chance to talk about that second trailer, but,
Yeah.
that second trailer dropped and it really made me like, oh, okay. All right. Now this is a show. Like this
Mhm.
looks like a cool show. At that first trailer, I was very scared, but, I don't think anybody's like going out there and like, subscribing to Disney Plus to say, "Oh, I'm getting Disney Plus now because of the Acolyte," right? Like, if you have
Yeah.
Disney Plus, you're watching this stuff. Like,
And so, like with X-Men 97, I think something to remember too is X-Men 97 probably isn't drawing new viewers into Disney, right? Because keep in
mhm,
mind, it's a sequel, so to speak, of a nostalgic cartoon that we all watched as kids. So, and even X-Men right now, there hasn't been a strong X-Men like in the MCU. Obviously, they're still kind of coming. We have Deadpool coming. Everyone knows Wolverine and stuff like that. So I think you give it time and X-Men 97 will like level out as like,
mhm.
you know, a good hit. It'll have a lot of rewind ability. And I mean, all that aside, dude, it was fantastic. Like it was just amazing. I don't even know how it could have been any better. I don't really even have if you're to ask me like CGC rate, it's a 10 out of 10, dude. It's a
All
10.
right. So let's if there's anything negative, let's do the negative and
Yeah.
get that out of the way, if any. Like,
Gosh, let me think hard. Um, dude, I don't think I have any negatives, bro.
I
We'd
know
have to
you're a
talk
huge
a little
X-Men
bit.
fan, so
We'd
yeah.
have to talk. I am a huge X-Men fan, but I'm also I'm very hard on the X-Men because I am a big X-Men fan.
Mhm.
So I can't think of any negatives unless we talk more about it, and then
Yeah,
maybe I'll think of
little think of
something. But
something. So here's my and it's not so much a I guess it's a gripe.
okay.
Like, like Rogue's big thing is she can't touch anybody. This is
Mhm.
just stupid stuff, and I don't know why they don't ever do this. Like, why doesn't she just wear one of those collars? Like, why don't they create a collar like that she could put on her wrist so she loses her powers and she could be with Gambit or whoever she wants?
'Cause she doesn't wanna give up her powers. That's, I don't know. She wants to be who she is. She can
Okay.
touch people now. She's all good now, but,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
um, yeah, like, the things I just loved about it was can't remember who I was talking to about this, but obviously in the previous X-Men animated, they covered a lot of the main stories. They covered a lot of the storylines that we've seen in the comics and whatnot. And you can't keep going back. We say this all the time. Like, God, we don't want to see Dark Phoenix. Like, we can't keep seeing this stuff. So I think they did so awesome with like bringing in new stories, even stories that are not considered like good stories, so to speak. Like, I mean, you're throwing in things like, I mean, obviously Fatal Attractions was very strong in this, and that's a good story, but Operation Zero Tolerance wasn't super well received. I mean, it was okay at the time, but it's not going to ever be. People aren't going to say like, "Oh, that's my favorite," storyline. Some people might, I guess, but
Hmm.
um, even like the Life Death stuff, that's older, like Claremont, like Storm and Forge stuff, and so you have all these storylines from like different eras, right? You got the Claremont era, you got the Jim Lee era with Fatal Attractions, and then you've got the Operation Zero Tolerance with oh man, I can't remember who was writing around that time, but doesn't matter. All three huge eras,
Yeah.
and they made them seamlessly kind of like work to and Genosha. And don't get me wrong. So then you also have the extinction of Genosha as well. That's another storyline. Those are all main storylines. Then mix in Madeline Pryor, Cable, and like all that. Like that's huge. That's a lot to do. And then just saying that out loud, and I'm thinking 10 episodes, and they made that like make sense.
Mm.
I mean, that's wild. And made it made sense and good. And still had other characters. So
like nobody had their own, like everybody had enough screen time where it wasn't like, well, where's this character? Where's this character? They
yeah.
all you felt for every character in every episode. Like even the Jubilee and Sunspot episode where they go
Yeah.
to where Mojo World. Like every episode was
Yeah,
good.
Mojo. They had an
Yeah.
episode from Mojo as well. Yeah.
The only other one thing that I will say negative that I didn't like that I'm surprised that no one has said it and it's not really been picked up is why they kept Gambit in the intro.
They didn't after that episode.
No, he's still in the Blackbird.
Oh, in the Blackbird. Yeah, when
Like,
they're
and
like
then he's also
flying.
still like running at the end, I believe.
Yeah. He's still running in the end.
But see, like
the title
that's like little
felt-
things that like because they change every other thing other than that. I'm like, they should really throw him out and maybe throw in more for somebody else.
Maybe because they're very much like, hey, here's the classic, like, them flying the Blackbird and them running face to face. I mean,
I just wish that's my only gripe. But other than that, like I love it too. Just
throw it away. What a flop, dude.
what a flop. It's terrible. Like they won't change the intro because they did, they changed all the characters and they changed like little things like you see stuff from like the original X-Men animated and then they brought in like the Prime Sentinels towards the end. Like those people were the Prime Sentinels but then you still leave him in there. And every time I see him, that's what always gave me hope to see if he would come back. I'm like, oh, maybe he's going to show back up because he's right there. Like,
like in terms of like the characters used, I think everyone can agree like the Wolverine to the side was perfect, not using him too much. There was obviously a lot of concern about the they them crap with like Morph, which was not a big deal. And even like coming into it, I was like, yeah, well, honestly, like when you're like this genetic shapeshifter, it might make sense. That might be the only time it makes sense to use plural like pronouns like that. But Morph was good. Morph was one of my favorite characters because obviously you got to see all kinds of characters whenever Morph showed up, and like so it was almost like they were there but weren't there.
Yep.
I think so if I have a gripe, I wanted more Bishop. And like we only had him like the first 2 episodes and I loved it. And I was really excited when I saw like the lineup leading in. And I was like, oh, sweet, dude, Bishop's gonna be part of the team. And then obviously he kind of like went to the future pretty early on, episode 3 or whatever. I can't remember. But I love that Nightcrawler joined the team. He's one of my all-time favorite X-Men. So him coming, like the changing of the roster is very a la X-Men, right? I mean, that's X-Men in general, right? So I thought that was really sweet.
And that's something that we didn't get too much in the original. Like you had your core X-Men for every season. Like it was everybody. Like they didn't.
Those ones,
there was never like an addition and a subtraction. Like they were always there. So you knew these characters for 4 seasons, 5 seasons, whatever it was. Like that's all it was. But it was nice to see even in a 10 episodes, some people going, not only just dying and whatever, but there is replacement. There is, and like you said, that always is the X-Men. That's like any team. So
it was so much fun too. Like every episode, especially like Genosha or oh gosh, where else? I don't know. I can't remember all the episodes where you're like seeing people, and I'm like, my wife probably was so annoying because I was like, oh, Marrow, I'm calling out like all these like characters, right? And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? But I thought Bastion was a great villain to use. Obviously Sentinels are always awesome, but like we've seen Sentinels, we've seen Nimrod, we've never seen Bastion before in any kind of like media format. So that was cool, and he's a good blend of all of those, right? So I mean, he's Nimrod, he's a Sentinel, and he's Bastion. Sinister being involved was really cool. I actually thought he was going to be more the villain, right? It kind of like they really hid the Bastion aspect for quite a while.
They did a really good job. They did a great job on everybody. Like they hid, and that's something that most of the time we know like the live action stuff, but I guess for the most part and most, like usually toys, right? Toys always come out like before these shows, and ruined something for us, right? Like we
Right.
already know what's in the Captain America movie next year, like the live action Captain
Yeah.
America movie, because McDonald's spoiled it. But like I didn't know Bastion at all. Like I didn't. I guess cartoon is like way different. Like they're really tight lipped. Like unless
Mhm.
they're leaking it like a full episode on like OnlyFans or something. I don't know.
Yikes.
Where are you getting it? But no, there's so many great fights, and the animation is so good. I went back and I was kind of like watching. I went on YouTube and I was just like typing in different things. Like my favorite overall fight is the Magneto Goblin Queen thing. Like them
Mm.
like fighting in that church. Oh,
Yeah,
is just awesome.
that
Just
was
him
really
like
cool.
pulling apart the church, her taking all the shattered glass and like throwing it at him, and doing it in a way where it's very almost like mystical. Like the way she moves her hands and her arms and stuff like that. It reminisced of watching like the early seasons of Castlevania on Netflix, like with Cypher, because the way she does all like her magic,
Mhm.
that's literally what I thought I was watching, was like Castlevania like magic. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not as huge as an X-Men fan as like you or other people. I caught a lot of the 90s stuff that I grew up with, but then,
Right.
even conversations with you, like where I stopped reading the X-Men. So like for me, Bastion, like that's brand new to me. Like 100% brand new.
Mhm.
I don't know anything from like 1995 to maybe like Civil War era of the X-Men. I couldn't tell you a storyline. If you were like, "Oh, what happens?" I couldn't tell you one storyline. I
Yeah.
couldn't, and I know what's coming the next season because I've kind of looked, and we obviously people have like posted it and stuff like that. But so for me going into this, like I want Age of Apocalypse. Like we've
Mhm.
talked about that, right? Like how much are we going to get of Age of Apocalypse? The rise of Apocalypse.
Well,
I
yeah,
guess it's like, go ahead.
let's talk about what could come up next season, right? Because
Mhm.
there's a couple themes that are being played out. Everything obviously is very strong, leading towards apocalypse. We saw obviously so before you even get to the time displacement when Rogue gets thrown to like the blue side of the moon, and you see Apocalypse's temple like that. When I saw that, I was like, oh shit, okay, here we go.
I missed that. See, like I need to actually go back and watch that to
Yeah.
see that part.
So then you get that, and then obviously like everyone kind of going in the different times, and so they're all very apocalypse centric storylines. But there's, I mean, also if you would have ever asked me, hey, will you think we'll ever see an adaptation of the Adventures of Cyclops and Jean Grey? No way, dude. Like there was a 2 4 issue mini series like back in the 90s, the Adventures of Cyclops and
Mhm.
Jean and the Further Adventures of Cyclops and Jean, and they're not low print runs. They're not easy to find. They weren't easy to find when I was younger and I found them, but yeah, they're not. It's not like well written. They're not badly written, but they're not like awesome, And so, but they're like huge to the character of Cyclops and Jean and Cable. So obviously, we're seeing that, and that's got this really strong ties to Apocalypse because it's in that Apocalypse future with Cable. We saw the other X-Men go back and like to the Egypt era, and we're seeing like the rise of Insaba Nur um, coming into being, and now the implications of that, right? Because he doesn't even know he's a mutant, and now he's going to meet these mutants and see their powers, and he's like, oh, well, these guys are like, we're the best, And so, like, is that going to like, is it the X-Men's fault that the survival of the fittest is about ready to occur?
Mm.
Um, and then we got this, the post credit scene with him finding Gambit's card, which is, as a lot of people know. Another story was not well received is, obviously Apocalypse always has 4 horsemen of death, like his 4 horsemen. And at one point, I think it was the Chuck Austin era when Gambit becomes the horseman of death. And even so, Polaris, I think, is like is pestilence, Sunfire's famine, and man, I can't remember who War is at that time, but that was not super well received.
Mm.
No one looks back and is like, oh, I really love that storyline. So that's kind of wild that they're doing that. But based off of what we saw with this season and there being all these different storylines, right, merged together, I think we can't assume it's all going to be Apocalypse.
Mhm.
I think Onslaught's lurking in the background, whether that happens season 2 or season 3. Onslaught's coming.
Mhm.
I think Bo DeMaio and all them are really big on like, hey, let's attack the storylines that we haven't done yet, which I think is awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd like to see, I, we've talked about Age of Apocalypse. Like that's that's downright and dirty. You and I have talked about how I'm hoping Sunspot leaves. They bring in like X Factor or the New Mutants, like, and even
Yeah.
like what's the what's the run that was like after the X-Men? After like Phalanx, there was like Generation Next, was it, or Generation X?
Generation X is like the
Okay.
second teams like Jubilee, Chamber, Sync, Husk, those kind of characters.
Okay. So I mean, those characters aren't even introduced yet, but I could see, like her leading a team, because you got to think of like who's left on Earth. Like they should have, it should be, I'm pretty sure it'll be a decent amount of time that the storylines are going to be what's going on in the future, what's going on in the past, but then you're also going to
Yeah.
have some type of storyline, like what's going on at the current time, where, because I think it's what, 6 months later, like that's how it ends. Like it's been 6 months since the tolerance episode, basically. I would like to see those characters grow.
I mean, you
So
do have Emma Frost still alive, and in that, Emma Frost is running the school. She's the
mm,
headmaster at the time, her and Banshee for
yeah,
that team Generation X. So
and they save her. They save her at Genosha.
yeah, so it
You
could
see
be
her.
for sure. Don't get me wrong, I love Age of Apocalypse. You and I talked about it. I want my Age of Apocalypse to be like specific Age of Apocalypse. I don't want like a half-assed one. I think I'd much rather see in terms of Apocalypse, and it's been so long since I've seen the original X-Men animated, and I can't remember the Apocalypse storylines that they really covered during that time. But
Mhm.
I mean, another storyline that I love is the 12. And that one, actually, most of these characters are already in existence currently in the series. So, like in a nutshell, Apocalypse is, trying to get 12 mutants, and it's like this list. It's like the list of 12 has been a prophecy for a long time. You're supposed to get these 12 mutants. He's going to steal all their powers and put it into another body and then resurrect himself in that body, kind of transfer his
I feel
consciousness.
like we've seen that. I feel
So,
like that's part of the animated. I feel like
well,
he
no,
says,
no way. I don't know.
yeah.
It wasn't even out by then. It hadn't been created yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it
Well, I
hadn't
mean,
been
I
created.
feel like something similar. Maybe I don't feel like I've seen that somewhere, because I
But
don't.
yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, I didn't read that, so I know.
the main characters you got in that. I mean, some of these can be switched out too. So I'm just going to quickly read the list of the 12 characters. You got Magneto, Polaris, Storm, Sunfire, which could be switched out with Sunspot if they really wanted
Mm,
to, like if they didn't want to bring in a new character. Iceman, who we've seen in the photo, the original X-Men, and he was in the original series, like bopping as a guest star. Cyclops, Phoenix, Cable, Bishop, Mikhail Rasputin, Colossus' brother. That could be a tricky one to bring in, but they have no problem bringing in new characters. Professor
yeah.
X, and then a character that a lot of people don't know about, the Living Monolith, who's a villain from way back in the day. But you know, that could be stretched out and changed to a different type character as well. So I think that, I mean, if you're gonna ask me what I want, that's what I'd like to see. Like, do the 12. Don't do Age of
Mhm.
Apocalypse. But yeah, so I
What do you
loved it,
think?
bro. So good.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. It's no. I think it's, as far as like the series itself, like going forward, what do what's your biggest fear though of like season two?
Um, I don't know, man. The fear is always it's the kind of somewhat the same fear with the X-Men is the roster's so big
Mhm.
and you want to see new characters, right? We're like, oh, cycle in some new characters, but then you got to leave some characters behind as well. Like you can't. And so that's always my fear with the X-Men is in any kind of like in all mediums, even in the comics when they have a new team and I'm like, oh, damn, they left out that guy. And I really like this guy, and I don't get to read about that character anymore. That's always my biggest problem with the X-Men. But I don't know, man. Like I know they kind of got rid of obviously I guess I don't know if I want to call him the creator because he didn't create the show, but I guess he
Mm.
did create this new version, Bo DeMaio. Um, Obviously there's a lot of drama with him being gone, and so you have to wonder without his leadership, will it be as good? Because dude knocked it out the park. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know what my fear is, man. I'm happy to see the X-Men. Okay, no, I got a fear. My fear is that these animated are gonna be too good. And then when they come to live action, people are gonna be like, this sucks. Like that's
Um,
my fear, dude. That's my fear.
Listen, a lot of people say that about the DC animated movies. Those
Yeah.
that last timeline was just hands down amazing. Like I loved, almost every movie that came out, and then shit, and then they did this like Tomorrowverse, and they're finally ending it. Like, thank God. Like these movies are terrible, and so
Mhm.
they're doing the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I'm kind of happy that they're ending it because it was just anything. The only good movies were like the Elseworld stuff. Like
Yeah.
Superman was all right. The Wonder Woman wasn't. The Batman was, like, terrible because it was, like, set in the '70s and was more like Bruce Lee, like, kung fu. It was, like, so bad. But yeah, I'm excited that this is ending. So, yeah, I get you on that because 'cause you're like, "Ooh, what's gonna happen? Like, is it gonna be too good? Gonna get your hopes up, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
get this live action," and you're just like, "Why can't they just do this in live action?" Like, it's the same stuff. Like,
I I also need them to move away from, and it's fine, I get it, first season, but we need to move away from Magneto Xavier. We have to.
mm,
We can't just keep having Magneto and Xavier. Like, put Magneto on the back burner for a little bit. There's other villains, like flesh them out. I don't know. I'd love to see that kind of disappear. I'd love to see some of the newer villains like show up. I mean, can you believe we went this whole season and no Sabretooth? I mean, there's still so many villains that they haven't even like tackled yet. I mean, obviously in the original series, but there's still like modern day villains that they could come out with. Yeah, Bastion was great. That was such a great pick. Great idea.
well, you know what? You know what story they're gonna adopt? I would, and here's one that I thought about. What's the one where I don't know the name of it, but it's like where the Avengers come in and fight the X-Men, like kind of
Avengers
like
versus X-Men.
no, no, no. It's in the 90s because I can see the cover.
Oh, Bloodlines.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is? Okay. So yeah, I that's what I think will probably that could happen next season. I would like to see that in the
So,
movie.
the other storyline they kind of hinted at as well. Like, I mean, a very loose hint, but the very House of M when they showed in like Magneto's consciousness, and in the
Mm,
background he had his boat. There was the boat, and you could see in the shadows Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and even Polaris on the boat. So, I mean, you could easily go some House of M storylines as well. Um, and just the problem with House of M is it's like it's kind of like Age of Apocalypse, where it's like a whole rewrite of the universe. But you
yeah, I
can
don't think
cater these stories a little bit and change them. So yeah, I don't know, man. I loved it. I have no complaints about it at all. I thought that was fantastic. Just
and
my
then
only complaint is
even
I'm sad it's over.
and I guess just so for me and for people who don't know, the chick who shows up at the end in the future, she's like a Rachel Summers, right?
Yeah, that's Rachel Summers, the daughter of Gene and Scott.
Yeah.
Not clonish, but they're
Hmm.
actually their genes. And at one point during the run of Excalibur, she gets sent to the future and she becomes this character named Mother Ascani, and she like forms the Ascani clan, which then adopts Cable when he comes to the future. So she's raising her brother, her
Mm,
clonish brother. I don't even get what do you call him? Half brother, probably. I guess a half brother. And so yeah, but that's Rachel Summers. Yeah.
mhm. And then I know something that you kind of picked up on at the end where Ford just kind of looking at like the almost like Days of Future Past chalkboard of like
Yeah.
characters.
That was
You
cool.
said there's a character that shows up there that's 'cause like we see, like there's a lot of
Yeah.
like missing in actions. There's a lot of ones that say like off world. There's ones that are just
Mhm.
open, which is the characters that are there. But like Scarlet Witch is there.
Yeah.
You said there's a character that
Yeah,
I've never.
there was one character that was kind of an odd. I mean, we saw Magic. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I can't remember which ones were like open
Mhm.
that were unlike labeled. But one of the characters up there that I thought was a strange pick was Dust from the new X-Men. Dust is a character. She's a Middle Eastern character. She's always in like a full hijab, and she can turn into dust. She basically like turns her body into dust, and she's a pretty cool character. Like I actually very much enjoy her character and the story she's been in. Um, I just thought it was a weird choice. It felt like why make that choice if you weren't planning on bringing her in? You know what I mean? Like you could have thrown up any other character. Like Magic was there. I'm trying to think.
I got the picture. People that are not presuming dead. So Magic's there. Emma Frost, Shadowcat. It's on there.
Shadow Cat, yeah.
Dust. Colossus, Iceman, Havoc's on there,
Mhm.
Exodus.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that
And there's a
are.
lot of big name characters
Mm,
that, like, you would put on there over Dust, you know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to be like, "Hey, let's put some big name characters," like, Dust is either he picked it because that's a fan favorite for him, or he wanted, like, another, like, maybe you're trying to get another female, but
Fox.
to me, it kinda feels like maybe you got some plans with Dust, which would be cool, man. I love the new X-Men roster. Like, they need some more time. Like, get them in there, get them some more stories. And like I said, that's the problem with X-Men. Like, it's hard to introduce new characters because everyone wants Rogue and Gambit and Wolverine and Magneto and Cyclops. Like they very much dominate the landscape. So,
Or maybe Exodus is going to be a villain in the season 2.
gosh, Exodus is amazing. Well, so Exodus has very strong ties to Apocalypse as well. So, um, we might see him in that route. And look, back to the 12. You got a Colossus in there, right? So
Yeah.
Colossus and Magic. You can't introduce Mikhail Rasputin, their brother, without introducing Colossus and Magic. So could be that we're seeing, and then Dust, bro, because they're in the desert and they're sand. Could be Dust.
Well, Havoc's on there, and like we
Oh,
said, they could
and
do
Havoc,
we could do X Factor and
dude, I love
New
Havoc.
Mutants with Magic in there. Branch out these other teams. Like let's
Well, Havoc
here.
has very
Here would
strong
be
ties
cool.
to the
Listen,
living monolith. The one
listen.
other characters of the 12.
This is going far fetched, but say season 2 again blows it out of the park, and
Yeah.
they introduce one of these side teams.
Yes. Its
They
own
get a
cartoon.
spinoff.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, an X Factor would be the one to do because, well, actually, you know what? You could do either one. We're kind of going long in time, but dude,
Hey,
I'm
fine.
loving this. So, X Factor, you could go very much. What was cool about it was the government sanctioned team, right? And
Yep.
we already got introduced to Valerie Cooper, and she was like their handler. So, Valerie Cooper was the handler for X Factor and like ran them. Now, so you could easily do that. You could also do X Force because Cable is so like disenchanted at the time when like the original creation of X Force, he's like, running and gunning,
Mm.
and all of like Cannonball and Sunspot and them are like kind of peel off from the X-Men because they don't want to like be part of Magneto's team anymore. And then they join Cable and they're more like rough and tough and more like a strike team, like on the outskirts and the fringe. And so you get a lot of great characters there too. But I mean, yes, in the perfect world, dude, spin off after spin off. Just I don't want to see Excalibur, bro. I always hated it.
Oh yeah, I don't think we would get that. Well,
So
again, Shadowcat's
boring.
there, Nightcrawler's still alive. Oh no, Nightcrawler's in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, like I love a New Mutants thing, man. Throw Magic, Sunspot, get
Yeah.
Wolfsbane in there, and I feel like we've seen those characters show up in the original like areas in Genosha, or when they were in prison, so they're there in the
Yeah.
universe. Make I'm sure there's I'm sure the team of New Mutants exists. It's just like, kind of like, hey, Sunspot, come on over.
Right. Right.
So let's
Yeah.
do a
So
spinoff.
do yeah, man. Do spinoffs. Do tons. Because it's easy, dude. It don't cost any money. It's animation, right?
Even if it's shorter, like we get everything else in Star Wars, right? We get all that. Like, why not? If
Yeah.
this does so well in
Who
animation
thought
format,
Bad
continue.
Batch would be a thing? Who
Yeah,
thought they would make 3 seasons of Bad Batch, dude? That's like a spin-off of how many episodes were they in? The final season of Clone Wars, which came like almost a decade after Clone Wars ended, and they were in like 3 episodes of like, you know what? Spin off. So yeah, dude.
yeah.
I mean, preaching to the choir here. That's all I want to see. Cancel everything else, dude. Cancel Star Wars, cancel Marvel, cancel it all, and just focus X-Men and move forward. Change the name
Listen,
Disney to X-Men. Screw
if
it.
there's no other Disney animated stuff, why not? Right?
Dude, I don't care. Cancel, just don't even say anything else. Just no more MCU. And then we just focus all our money and time on X-Men moving forward. And that's all we get. That's all you get. That's all anyone gets. Sorry. Sorry or not sorry. That's what I want.
All right. Well, I appreciate this fun-filled episode of nothing but reviews and the god of all knowledge over there, Zach, with his many omnibuses behind him of X-Men knowledge. It's like,
Dude, it makes me want to read them so bad. I'm like, I already was
no,
like, ooh, where can
I am in
start?
the same boat, man. Like
Read
growing
'em.
up in the '90s. Like again, I recall a lot of this stuff that was happening in this first season up until with Bastion. Like, I was like, The moment, and I know we're gonna keep going. The moment he's like Wolverine stabs Magneto, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's coming. I'm like, he's gonna rip the adamantium out. And then I
Yeah.
immediately went to like online and like was typing in these episodes or these issues, and I'm like looking for it, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, there
dude.
it is. Like when he
Number
goes like
25, and then
yeah, like when he
Wolverine
just goes like
75.
crazy in his mind, and then like there's you get the Jim Lee stuff where he's like sitting at a tree and Jubilee's talking to him, and like
That
claws
was
come out in their bone, and because
yeah.
at that point
That was at the
in the
wedding.
90s, yeah, and because at that point in the 90s, he thought that they put them in there, like
Right.
the blades.
We
Like
had
he
none
didn't
of it
realize
had known
yeah.
until Wolverine issue 75 when he pops them and then they break.
Mm,
And like that's where you're like, whoa, dude. Even like you can go back to the cards, man. Back when I was a kid, and the cards were like when they the back of the card and it tells the powers. And there's nothing. It's like metal bones like implanted in his body. Like it
mm.
does not imply that there's anything underneath that. So yeah, that was Gabe and I were talking about this texting about it. Gabe loved 90 comics, and where he's like, that was probably the last like big like character development change for Wolverine. And I was like, no, that's a big one. And then I threw out a couple others of like the origin storyline when he started to get his memories back, and when he finally like had his whole set of memories. Like I would say that's another defining aspect of Wolverine. But honestly, like this was the one that like, I mean, for years he was feral. He wasn't even like around, bro. Like he wasn't even given dialogue. Um, he was just running loose, partying with like Elektra, and he had like a Raphael bandana across his head, but
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, he
I've
just
seen those
looked
pictures.
feral.
So. Too
It
good.
was cool stuff.
So there's gonna be a lot. Yeah, I kind of want to go back now, and being at the swap, and I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to go and like I'm gonna do this run of X-Men stuff. Like I know I could just either buy the trade, read it online.
Now's
Like
not the time to buy him either.
yeah, I know,
Those
right?
books are hot. Yeah, they're getting high.
So all right, that's it for season 4, episode 21. So shout out to everybody from the 3 Minute Basement crew. Thank you so much. Had a lot of fun out there, and this drops just prior to Memorial Day weekend. So enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Have fun. Beginning of the summer. For those people, open up your pools. Enjoy. That's what I'll try to be doing this weekend after I get back from DC. So, Zach, any other closing stuff?
No, man. Good stuff. Obviously, yeah. Sorry about the lack of comics, but we did have these reviews to do, and
Yeah, we've been sitting on
it
some
was
of
a
this
good
stuff.
week based on our schedules to kind of like knock out an early episode. So
Hell yeah. So be back next week with articles and comic book reads. And that's it. So, and of course, a word from our sponsors, Sidekick Supplies. Peace out, everybody.
Hey, comic book collectors. Do you want to protect what you collect? Do you hate when your comic books slide around in your short box, or you need to turn them sideways just so they don't bend or fall over? Well, look no further than Sidekick Supplies. Their product fits firmly inside your comic box, so you don't need to worry. And not only is their product made in the USA, but also ships free directly to your doorstep. Check out our sponsor, Sidekick Supplies, at sidekicksupplies.com and use the code Comic-Con15 for 15% off your purchase. Believe me, you'll be ordering more than one.